while at seminary during a preaching course with the Reverend Dr. Patrick Thomas Aquinas O'Neill, who could but learn from a minister with that name, I gained some words of wisdom about sermon preparation and presentation. First, he said, you should know your audience. And then he said, you should know what you are talking about. And finally, he said, you will find 3 or 4 key areas that you will keep coming back to explore. And today I find myself facing all of those points. One, I have barely had time to get to know you. I have met many of you who serve on committees and social hour, but that is too few of you. I have read a brief history. I have gone on the website, but I've not had time to sit with you and explore what it is that awakens your heart and mind or brings you joy or sorrow or comfort. And I don't know what theological, spiritual, philosophical thoughts keep you awake at night or lull you off to sleep, especially during a sermon. I do know my common themes: community, interconnectedness, and how to become someone who can help heal the world, especially in regards to becoming an anti-racist, anti-oppression ally. And as I continue to learn how to resist racism and work to eliminate racial inequality, I find myself thinking about our Unitarian Universalist principles and how our common understanding of these help or harms in the process. We have chosen the theme collective liberation for the summer, and that leads to my other conundrum. Do I know the topic adequately to be preaching on it? Probably not. So I won't preach, but instead engage in some reflective thinking with you in hopes that you will follow up with questions and comments. If Unitarian Universalism is my religion, not just of birth, but of choice, how does it help me? I really do want to work to build a not racist community, and I want to know what it means to be an ally in the process. And thus my theme, let's do this together, and confessions of a wannabe ally. Unitarian Universalism is a non-creedal religion. We tell ourselves that there is a common set of principles, but no dogma or set of teachings which to adhere. And this, of course, begs the question, are they commonly held beliefs, or is ours a religion with a cafeteria of options? And this distinctive characteristic of Unitarian Universalism is an area that creates both opportunity and tension. And the one I want to think about is between individualism and community. When I hear that ours is a non-creedal religion without specific dogma, I don't translate it to mean that I can believe anything I want, but rather that I am in relationship with others, and the thoughts that I have and maybe the beliefs that I have are only valuable and valid when tested with others who also come together to question, to learn, to listen and explore. In other words, I might believe what I want, but if I want to be in genuine and accountable relationship with others, I need shared wisdom, shared perspective of others who think differently than me, and often who challenge or affirm my views. And this is what happened to me when I began to think about what it means to be an ally for racial justice. Someone recently asked me how I got so immersed in the ideas, possibilities, and problems associated with anti-racism, and particularly anti-oppression systems analysis. And I suspect it began with my parents. Mine, like I am guessing yours, told me that all people should be treated fairly and equally. And that made good sense. But I observed life is not fair, and society was not demonstrating fairness and equality to everyone, especially Black, Brown, or Indigenous people. And I observed unjust ways of treating people who were not white like me, treating them so just based on the color of their skin. And as I observed this, I began to read about history, basically whose story gets told and whose doesn't, being the simple way of explaining that type of history that I began to read about. Personal narratives of those considered on the outside, and books and articles on racial inequalities. But more importantly, I began to get over my own anxieties and ask people of color who I had built relationships with to tell me what I was unable to see because of my limited and specific white cultural bias. I listened, I asked, I was rebuffed, but most importantly, I learned that the persons of color I was talking to didn't need me fixing them. They needed me fixing myself. One person, a member of the Montechusett Martin Luther King Jr. colleague, told me in no uncertain term she did not like the word ally. That to her meant that I was stepping in, taking over, instead of working on my own stuff. I thought about that a lot, and after careful self-reflection, realized she had a valid point. I thought I had something to offer, but no. I'm not yet willing to give up being an ally, but eventually I came to grasp the idea that is found in a quote from Queensland Aboriginal activist group. It says, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come here because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." Let us work together. So this is my confession. When I first, 35 plus years ago, began to want to make things better for them, I needed to learn that I was part of the system of white supremacy and that I was in no position to presume or offer anything. In fact, I have had persons of color say to me, "I don't need you to fix me. I need you to fix you and your system. This is your mess. You clean it up." Now that collective you is what she meant, and that was when I began to learn the valuable lesson that I had to decenter myself and examine my expectations, my unexamined biases, my subterranean prejudices. I had to learn how to listen, engage, explore, and develop relationships and partnerships where people could work together, because my liberation, my spiritual wholeness is bound up with others. And this brings me to my 7th principle, a covenant to affirm and promote the respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And this loops back to that tension, the individualism you so pride ourselves on, and the value of interdependency and community that I hold as one of my highest principles. I am connected to you and you to me. My liberation and freedom to be working toward building a community of racial equality is dependent on listening to people of color's experience and taking their lead. And in spite of an article, there is no such thing as a white ally. I'm not yet prepared to give up the notion that I am an ally, albeit one who is constantly learning, often stumbling and bumbling. But I come to it with the foundational belief that Martin Luther King Jr. stated: "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny." Here I'm back again talking about community and interconnections. So perhaps what I am attempting is to build alliances of communities coming together to be accountable, to heal, and to transform. And the art of building alliances is complex. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. states, "A true alliance is based upon some self-interest of each group and a common interest into which they merge." So African Americans, Latinos, Latinx, Native American, Iraqi, Middle Eastern, Jewish, poor, privileged, white, women, men, youth, elders, gay, lesbian, bi, and trans persons must come together, we must sit down together. That's an alliance. But that requires living with ambiguity and with admitting ignorance of others' cultures and histories, and it requires a commitment to remain in relationship even when feeling scared or uncertain, even when making mistakes. King's book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, which I would propose is his absolute best book, helped me to understand and gain a deeper awareness of my own identity as a white person who desires to be an ally. This is a journey. It's led me along many paths. I've lost friends, I've gained friends. I've lost nights of sleep, and I have gained a sense of wholeness because I am convinced that a path to healing is to be found while building genuine and authentic relationships. And this, I believe, manifests working in connected communities. Robette Diaz, an Indigenous woman member of a committee that I was chair of for the UUA, would often remind me that the success of the journey involves deepening a new cultural consciousness, not just of others, but of myself, requiring me to think of the collective as a unit of action. And she would say, individuals accomplish very little. It is the power of the collective that makes real and lasting changes. Collective liberation through deepening relationships, honest self-searching, and reflecting on those learnings and actions. Isn't that powerful? These types of relationships help me to explore my spiritual, religious beliefs in more depth and provide ways to think about what experiences I have had through my life that have led me to make meaning out of life and death and joy and sorrow, challenge and reward. The one thing I have come to know is that when engaged with others to wrestle with ideas and opinions and experience, it is then that I have a better chance to grow into the person I would like to be, the person I would like you, my family, my friends, and the world to be proud of. I guess if pushed to name my religious and spiritual identity, I would confess to being a theological community activist feminist. Of course, in communities that are made up of people, there will be quarrels and wrongdoings. And certainly in community activism, there are going to be challenges and misdeeds and mistakes. And oh, I hope to be strong enough to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, I messed up. Oh, how to be in a community that when we say and confess our wrongdoings, others respond with care and allow us to learn and repair the wrongs. There's a story of a village. It may be true or may not, doesn't really matter. For I tell it as a vision of collective liberation, an ideal. When a member of this particular community acts unjustly and breaks the harmony of the community, they are brought to the center of the village and everything stops and every person in the village circles around them. And then each person tells of a good deed, a word, an act, a strength, a kindness, a characteristic that that person accused of wrongdoing has. And when every last person, child, elder, in the community has spoken, a celebration takes place, a celebration and a ritual, and that person is welcomed back into the community with a recommitment to the well-being of the entire community. Now that's a type of accountability that allows us to become vulnerable and where we can learn the impact of our wrongdoings and be reminding that we're interconnected with all creatures and all beings, and in spite of our errors, we have qualities and characteristics that people regard with care and concern, and that the wellness of the community, its health and harmony is crucial. Margaret Wheatley, author and lecturer on how organizations can function in healthier ways in turning to one another, writes, relationships are all there is. Everything in the universe exists because it is a relationship to everything else. Nothing exists in isolation. And we have to stop pretending we are individuals who can go it alone. So if we're to be about healing a racially broken world, a world built on systems that oppress and kill people of color in disproportionate numbers, something very demanding is required of us. We must grasp that though we are not personally responsible for racism, we are personally responsible for engaging in all the ways that we can to resist racism. Last week in her powerful opening words, Myra Aronson said, I feel it now. What I do about it is the next challenge. So what shall we do about it? This I do know. My healing is tied with your healing. My harmony is tied with your harmony. Our collective liberation is bound together. I can imagine that. And I know I can't imagine or craft it without you helping me to imagine it and build it into being. Let's do this together.